The Renwood shopping mall wasn't on any map Ethan Reyes had seen, and he'd driven every side road in this town twice over. His GPS gave up half a mile before the entrance, the screen freezing like it didn't want to go any farther. The road to the mall was barely lit. Just a cracked two-lane stretch bordered by a skeletal tree line on one side and an abandoned railroad on the other. When the mall finally emerged from the gloom, it looked less like a shopping center and more like a forgotten tomb of glass and concrete. Most of the signage was broken or rusted, and one half of the parking lot was swallowed by tall grass and creeping vines. Only 2 cars were parked near the entrance, a beat-up security vehicle and a black SUV with government plates. Ethan checked his watch. 9:43 p.m. His shift didn't start until 10. But he wasn't going to be late, not on the first night. He tightened the grip on his duffel bag and headed inside. The interior of the mall was a graveyard of broken neon, flickering bulbs, and hollow echoes. It should have been empty, but the silence was so thick it felt like it was listening. Near the central information desk stood a man in a Navy uniform. He was short, wary, with tired eyes and a clipboard in hand. A laminated badge said, "Walter Head Security." "You Ethan?" the man asked, not bothering to shake hands. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "Reyes, just moved out from?" Walter held up a hand to cut him off. "Don't need your life story, son. You're a warm body. You walk. You watch. You report. That's the job." He handed Ethan the clipboard. It had a map of the mall, a log sheet, and a stapled printout with large block letters across the top. "Renwood Mall Nightshift Rules." Ethan frowned. Rules. Read them. Every word. Out loud if it helps. Some of them won't make sense. Doesn't matter. You follow them anyway. You screw up, you disappear. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Disappear? Ethan echoed, trying to decide if the man was joking. Walter clapped him on the shoulder. "You'll be fine. Just keep your head. Keep moving. And no matter what you hear, never go to the east stairwell. That's not on the list, but it's worth remembering." He handed Ethan a set of keys and started walking toward the exit. "Wet? Hold on," Ethan called out. "Aren't you going to?" Walter turned at the door. "Don't follow. Don't call. Don't ask questions. Just survive the night. Do that, and I'll see you tomorrow at 6:00 a.m. Dumb." The door slammed behind him. Ethan stood alone in the central atrium. Above him, dead escalators loomed like ribs in a whale's skeleton. Half the shops were boarded up. Others had cracked windows and dust, so thick you couldn't tell if they sold clothes, toys, or corpses. He looked down at the rules again. Renwood Mall Night Shift Rules 1. At 1:30 a.m. if you see a child standing alone near the fountain, do not approach. No child should be there. If they wave, turn around and walk away. Do not run to the east stairwell. If you hear them following, keep walking. 2. If you hear soft music coming from the closed toy store, ignore it. If it gets louder, whisper your full name repeatedly until it stops. 3. If the elevator opens by itself at exactly 2:46 a.m., do not look inside. Stare at the wall until it closes. Ignore anything you see in the reflection on the floor. 4. At 3:03 a.m., you may receive a phone call from mall administration. The number will look normal. Answer. Say, "He's not here anymore." Then hang up. Do not answer if they call back. Ethan exhaled sharply and gave a nervous laugh. It had to be a joke. Some hazing crap. Just a bunch of rules to mess with the new guy. He folded the sheet and tucked it into his shirt pocket anyway. 10:12 p.m. he began his patrol. The flashlight's beam cut through thick air. The power was stable, but the light panels overhead hummed like dying insects. Storefront mannequins stared out with hollow eyes. The food court was dead, except for a single open vending machine humming softly. Ethan swore it hadn't been plugged in earlier. He walked past the fountain in the mall's center. A large, ornate thing with dry basins and rust-colored stains. No child. Just an empty stroller tipped on its side nearby. He moved on. 11:35 p.m., the toy store caught his eye. It was called Whimsy's World. Shuttered. Locked. He paused. For a second he thought he heard something. A music box maybe. A child's lullaby, just barely at the edge of perception. He waited. It stopped. "Nope," he muttered. "Not tonight." He moved on. 12:57 a.m. he made a final round before midnight. Locked all side entrances. Logged patrols in the clipboard. All clear. He felt proud of himself. This wasn't so bad. As the clock ticked toward 100 a.m., Ethan sat in the security office and pulled out the rule sheet again, just to be sure. He didn't notice the camera feeds behind him flicker for a split second. Didn't see the small figure in the center atrium waving directly at the lens. The mall was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from stillness or sleep, but the unnatural kind. A silence that smothered sound like wet cotton over a scream. Ethan sat in the security office, sipping from a half-warm coffee and watching the camera feeds flicker lazily across a bank of grainy monitors. The analog setup didn't help, each image slightly warped, static chewing at the corners. Then he saw it. Monitor 3. Atrium cam. The fountain. A figure stood motionless at the edge of the basin. Small. Childlike. A little girl. Ethan blinked and leaned forward. What the hell? She wore a white dress, her hair long and jet black, hanging like wet threads over her shoulders. Her arms were limp at her sides, her feet bare on the cold marble, her head slightly tilted, like she was listening to something inside the water. The time in the corner of the feed read 1:31 a.m. His blood chilled. Rule Fay 1. At 1:30 a.m. If you see a child standing alone near the fountain, do not approach. No child should be there. If they wave, turn around and walk. Do not run to the east stairwell. If you hear them following, keep walking. He looked back at the feed. The girl slowly lifted one arm and waved. Ethan stood without thinking, heart thudding painfully in his chest. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the fact that a child was in the mall at this hour, or that someone had predicted it. This is a setup, he muttered. Has to be. But his hand was already reaching for the flashlight. He stepped into the hallway, bathed in pale emergency lights, and walked toward the fountain. Each step seemed to echo twice, once in the air and once just behind him. He turned a corner and froze. She was there. Not on the monitor. Not a glitch. Real. Standing still. Dress unmoving in the still air. Her face partially hidden behind that curtain of hair. Ethan opened his mouth to say something, but then remembered the rule. Do not approach. He clenched his jaw and took a step backward. Her head tilted further. Then her hand moved again. Another wave. Ethan turned away sharply and began walking. Do not run to the east stairwell. His legs itched to sprint. But he forced himself to maintain a steady pace, heading west, deeper into the mall. Behind him, a faint pattering began. Tiny footsteps, barefoot on tile. Following, Ethan passed shuttered shops, locked kiosks, old mall maps curling on their stands. The sound followed him. Not close, but always there. He tried to hum. Nothing came out. His mouth was dry, his breath shallow. A flash of movement caught his eye. A reflection in a jewelry store mirror. He looked. But it wasn't his reflection. It was her, standing still inside the glass, her face finally visible. No eyes, just dark pits. A mouth that stretched too wide and was sewn shut with black threads. Then she moved. Inside the mirror. He spun away and kept walking. A janitor's closet appeared ahead. He yanked the door open and ducked inside, pulling it shut behind him. Total darkness. He clutched the flashlight with shaking hands, but didn't turn it on. Instead, he listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no breathing. Just drip, drip, drip. He turned the light on. The ceiling was dry. The floor, too. But the walls, handprints, dozens of them, small, wet, as if a child had dipped their hands in black ink and pressed against the walls. Then came the sound. Knock. From outside the door. Soft, measured. Knock. Knock. He held his breath. Then, giggle. A high-pitched, syrupy sound that didn't belong in any real throat. The doorknob began to turn. Ethan burst out, nearly tripping, and sprinted down the corridor. He didn't care about the rules anymore. He needed out. He needed light. People. Reality. Back in the security office, monitors scrambled again. In every feed, Ethan was visible, but not where he should be. He was on the west wing, and the east, and walking into the elevator, simultaneously. And in one feed, he stood at the fountain again, staring into the camera. His face, wrong, stretched, split, grinning. Back in real time, Ethan stumbled through the food court, breathing hard. His head was spinning. Everything was shifting. The lights turned red. All of them. Emergency panels flared up with a deep alarm thrum, followed by total silence. Then, over the speaker system, come out, wherever you are. His name, whispered like a chant. Ethan, 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 Ethan. He looked up. He was in front of the toy store, and the music was playing inside. Whimsy's world welcomes you where toys come alive! The melody curled through the corridor like a ghost's breath. Sickly sweet, soft, and persistent. The same jingle Ethan had heard earlier in the night, coming from behind the sealed glass doors of Whimsy's world. The long-abandoned toy store at the center of the mall. Rule 2. If you hear soft music echoing from the closed toy store, ignore it. If it gets louder, start whispering your own name repeatedly until it stops. It's not a game, it's a lure. The lights flickered overhead in frantic, nauseating bursts. Red, then white. Red again. Ethan's pulse drummed in his throat. The toy store's display window was cracked. Toys lined up like broken children at a funeral. Dust, covered plushies, cracked porcelain dolls, tin clowns with eyes too wide and mouths painted in sharp, unnatural smiles. He backed away, but the music got louder. Woo, see you now, come play with us, forever and a day a pay. Panic rising. Ethan remembered the rule. Ethan, he whispered. Ethan, Ethan. His own name felt foreign on his tongue. Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. The music spiked, and suddenly the entire storefront window shattered outward, the jagged glass raining onto the mall floor like glittering snow. And standing in the doorway of the toy store was nothing. Just darkness inside. A hallway that should not exist, lined with flickering bulbs and turning deeper than any toy store ever should. Something was walking inside it. Tiny feet, plush limbs. Dozens of toys stepping forward in unison, animated by something old and malicious. A stuffed bear's head lolled to the side, its black button eyes weeping ink. A cracked doll dragged a rusted jack in the box behind her, its handle spinning on its own. Ethan, come in, let's play, they whispered. He turned to run, but his legs locked up. He couldn't move, like the air had turned to syrup. Behind him, he could hear the sound of a box slowly opening. Click, 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 ding, he screamed, and suddenly, whatever held him snapped. Ethan bolted. He didn't know where he was running to anymore. Just away. But the mall had changed. Corridors stretched where they hadn't before. Stores looped back on themselves. Escalators led nowhere. Time fractured. And behind him, every corner echoed with whispers in toy voices. Whimsy's not done yet. He ducked into a service corridor, slamming the steel door behind him. Pitch black. His flashlight flickered. He panted. Leaned against the cold wall. His hands trembled so hard the light beam jittered. On the opposite wall was a child's drawing. Crayon on plaster. A stick figure with a name scrawled above it in jagged red lines. Ethan. Underneath was a second figure, larger, darker, faceless, holding Ethan's hand. A third figure stood to the side, crossed out, head missing. The words below read, "Only one stays." Suddenly, the radio on his belt crackled to life, hissing static. Then, "Ethan, we're here for you. Join us in the elevator. It's time." He looked at his watch, 24:06 a.m. His breath caught. Rule Fein 3. If the elevator opens by itself at exactly 24:06 a.m., don't look inside. Just stare at the wall until it closes, no matter what reflection you see in the polished floor. The elevator bell rang. Ding! Just around the corner. He was too close. He stumbled backward, slamming into the wall. A cold gust swept past him. The doors opened behind him with a gentle sigh. He didn't turn. He clenched his fists, focused on the wall. His pulse a thundering roar in his ears. He could hear something moving inside the elevator, wet slithering, and whispering. His voice, but saying things he'd never said. "I'm not supposed to be here. I broke it. I broke the rules. It's inside me now." He glanced, just a flicker, down at the polished floor tiles, and saw the reflection, not his. A woman stood behind him, neck broken, head twisted completely backward, mouth gaping wide. Then, the elevator doors slammed shut, the lights blew out. In the dark he collapsed, his mind shredded at the edges, thoughts melting into chaos. This wasn't real, couldn't be real. But it was, and worst of all, he had one rule left to survive. The corridor smelled like rot and old copper. Ethan was no longer running. He was staggering, like a drunk, his legs barely responding, his ears ringing, his eyes raw from tears and fear. Every inch of the mall now felt infected. The walls pulsed as though breathing. The air was heavier, charged with the sick pressure of being watched by something ancient. And it wasn't over. He checked his watch. 3:02 a.m. His eyes widened. Rule 84. At 3:03 a.m., you may receive a call from mall administration. The number will look normal. Answer it. Say, He's not here anymore? Then hang up. Do not answer if they call back. Ethan gritted his teeth and reached for his phone. It was already ringing. 3:03 a.m. On the dot. The caller ID said Renwood Mall admin number 404-556-1313. His thumb hovered over the green button. A second ring. Third, he answered. His voice cracked as he said the line. He's not here anymore. Then he hung up, his knees buckled in relief. Silence. But only for 5 seconds. The phone rang again. Same number. Same name. No, he hissed, stepping back. It rang again. And again. Faster now, like a heartbeat. The screen flickered, then glitched. The numbers scrambled into nonsense symbols. Then a voice burst through the speaker without him answering. You lied. Ethan. We see you. The lights in the corridor went out, and the phone melted in his hand, the plastic warping and dripping onto the floor like black tar. He screamed. A new sound joined him. Footsteps, but not human ones. Dozens of them. Plastic clacks. Bone scrapes. Wet dragging. From every hallway, every stairwell. The toys were back. The child by the fountain had returned. The woman from the elevator was crawling on the ceiling above him, her bones cracking in reverse. And far behind them, something larger was coming. Something that didn't walk, but moved like a wave of shadow swallowing everything. Ethan turned and sprinted. Doors slammed on their own. Cameras sparked. PA systems blared the mall's old cheerful jingles, slowed and warped into demonic lullabies. He ran past storefronts now twisted into impossible shapes. The food court had teeth. The children's clothing store had mannequins with stitched mouths, heads turning to follow him. He made it to the security room, his only hope. Locked the door. Bolted it. Slammed down into the chair and stared at the monitors. Nothing made sense. Every camera showed different versions of the same hallway, each one slightly different. In one, Ethan was still standing. In another, he was dead. In the third, he was laughing and holding hands with the child from the fountain. He blinked, and the monitor showed his own face. Live feed. From behind, he turned. No one there. He turned back. The monitor was now black. A single line of glowing white text crawled across. You broke the rules. Now you stay. Then the power died completely. The room was plunged into darkness, except one red emergency light glowed overhead, pulsing like a heartbeat. From somewhere in the mall came the sound of a lullaby box winding up one last time. Ding, ding, ding. A whisper in his ear, not his own. Hey's not here anymore. But you are. Something grabbed his ankle. Ethan's final scream never reached the outside. Epilogue. Opening shift 700 a.m. The lights turned on. Shoppers and morning staff entered Renwood Mall, bleary-eyed and sipping coffee. The fountain was still. The toy store silent. The security office door was unlocked, but empty. Ethan's belongings were gone. No blood. No signs of struggle. Just his logbook on the desk. The last line. 2C46 a.m. elevator opened by itself. I saw her face. I broke the rule. Next to it was a Polaroid photo, blurry, faint. A group shot of children standing around a security guard. Ethan. Smiling. But his eyes were hollow. Behind them, just barely visible, was something towering. Faceless. Watching. Later that afternoon, a new job listing appeared online. Now hiring a night shift security. Renwood Mall duties: monitor cameras. Patrol hourly, lock entrances by midnight. Follow all posted rules. Pay $18.5 to benefits. Apply within.